Hey everyone, I would like to welcome you into NETLIFE with myself, of course, Dawn Staley. Aliyah Boston is the most dominant player in the country. I do believe she was the most dominant center in her freshman and sophomore years, and she's developed into the most dominant player in our game. And I just think it's who she wants to be. Like when you have a goal, when you have a dream, when you want to do something, you don't rely on other people to define that. And what she's done is she's just worked on her game. And if she made it such that she leaves no questions when it comes to who the best player in the women's college basketball season is. I believe Aliyah was underappreciated by the media in years past. This year, again, she leaves no question. So the media can't do anything besides praise what she's done, what she's accomplished, what she will continue to accomplish in our sport. You know, Aliyah Boston is the easiest to work with. Like, she's self-motivated. When a player is as good as she is, there's no one that's going to motivate them besides themselves. So I have the easiest job in America when it comes to having a player like Aliyah Boston, because you just have to give her small details and how to avoid triple teams, small details in game, just to say, hey, just take a look at this. And she'll shake her head, okay. And then she'll execute and deliver. So the self-motivation is what drives most great players. She is by far the best leader, captain, practice player, everything. She approaches everything like you see her playing a basketball game, like every single thing. She's a great student. And I have to turn the focus off of her and onto her parents, because you can tell that she's somebody's child that is disciplined, that's no nonsense, that's a faith-based family, and they raised both of their daughters the right way. I've had the fortune of having Aliyah's sister, Alexis, as part of our basketball family for 2 years. So it is who they are as a family. Aliyah's game will translate to the WNBA very easily. Here's why. She won't be triple teamed. She will barely be double teamed. So she'll be single covered in the league. She can shoot it. She can score it mid-range. She's dominant in the paint. What I would love for her to work on is becoming a better passer, because that's probably a weak area. And it's probably a weak area because we've needed her to do so much other stuff. And now that, her teammates are great compliments to her, she can start working on some of the things that will complete her game. And that's passing, but no doubt about it. She'll be the #1 draft pick next year in the WNBA draft, without a doubt. The Beijing Olympics are almost here. Before you watch as athletes compete, hear their stories. Listen to top women athletes share their trials and triumphs on the Flame Bearers podcast. Stay tuned for more and what's ahead on Flame Bearers Season 2. What's the best workout program? The one that is custom built just for you. Future is the new workout experience that pairs you one-on-one with your own fitness coach. Your coach will map out a plan based on your goals, with workouts delivered to your phone each week. Future, your Apple Watch, and the app all pair seamlessly so you and your coach can track your progress, celebrate achievements, and keep you accountable every day. Get started right now with 50% off your first 3 months at tryfuture.com/netlife. I caught up with someone that I personally know and admire. Her leadership skills are something to emulate. something to aspire to, something that will certainly help young leaders out there in our sport and beyond. Well, I am super excited for my guest today. As a student athlete, she was all SEC on the basketball court for Georgia. She went on to spend some time as an assistant coach for the basketball team, Coach Andy Landers, before moving to the administrative side of athletics. Welcome to NetLife, history-making Carla Williams, the University of Virginia Athletic Director. Director Williams, thank you for joining NetLife.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on here with you.
Well, I'm gonna have to start with just kind of, what are you doing now? And I just have to bring up me being a Virginia alum. When I first got onto the grounds, because we don't say campus, we don't say camp, we say grounds. We say first year, second year, third year, fourth year.
Yep.
It took me a while to make the adjustment of the prestige of UVA, but I like it because it's a lot different than any other university in the country, and we separate ourselves with some of the little things that are pretty neat. How long did it take you to really use grounds versus campus?
It took me, I probably messed up a few times in the first couple of months, but it became natural after that. So, and it's okay. We still use freshman, sophomore, junior, senior for sports, but we definitely use first year, second year, and so on outside of sports. It didn't take me long, Dawn. It didn't. I had my eye on Virginia for quite a while, so I was hopefully prepared to be here.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So as you are making the ranks, and I'm actually going out of order, we're just gonna have a conversation.
Oh yeah, let's go.
As you are just preparing for that next move,
mm-hmm.
you was it just UVA? Did you have a couple of you did a couple of programs that you were eyeing?
Yeah, so I've been at UVA 4 years, and probably 10 years ago, I was at Georgia in administration, and I was advancing, and I realized that, I was advancing and I was going to hit a ceiling at Georgia, and I needed to be thinking about, what was next and what are the places that I would like to be an athletic director? What is attractive to me? And I had a great job at Georgia, so I was very selective, and I narrowed my list to less than 5 schools, and Virginia was on that list. And for a lot of the reasons that you probably picked Virginia too, but it was on my list, so much so that I remember telling one of my colleagues, and this was a decade ago, that I sure would love to be the athletic director at the University of Virginia. And so I've been paying attention to Virginia for a long time.
That is super cool. I think a lot of people get comfortable, like you being at Georgia. That's your alma mater. You were moving up the ranks, and a lot of people are just comfortable with that. But you're telling us how you think. Like you were gonna make some moves. You were strategic in the move that you want to make, and we're so thankful that you're the athletic director at UVA. We know it's not an easy job, and you probably took the job because it wasn't an easy job. It was a job in which needed a woman's touch, and that's not to say anything about the previous athletic directors. But when you took over UVA, you followed the first African-American athletic director in ACC history, and you one-upped him by being the first ever African-American female athletic director in the Power 5 history. Has that magnitude set in?
Yes, and I'll say yes, and you know what it's like when you're in a leadership position. You know, heavy lies the head that wears the crown, right?
Mhm.
And so me knowing that I was the first Black female to be an athletic director at this level, I obviously knew it when I was dreaming about being an athletic director. No, there was no one else that I could look to and say that's what I want to do. So I knew I would be the first when it happened. Feel completely blessed to be in this position. And you know, I've heard you say this before, and I believe it 100%. It is an awesome blessing to be in this position because you can chart a path for others to follow, a trail for others to follow. And I get to mentor a lot of people of color, a lot of women, and I get great satisfaction in that. But this is the part where I've heard you say there's a burden too. You know, there is a burden to being on that pedestal in that spotlight, because and it's a burden that not many of my peers, just like not many of your peers, share. If you fail, then it's a setback for a lot of people, you know, which makes success that much more important.
It's called pressure. Like, is there's extra pressure to being in that seat, and I know you were ready for it because you're handling it well, and you have opened the doors for other African American athletic directors. I know you know Candace Leah Vanderbilt. I know you probably had run-ins with Nina King at Duke. What are your thoughts on, you know, those numbers increasing over the past couple of years since you sat at your throne?
Yeah, I love it. You know, it was a while. I was the only one for a while there, and I was, you know, starting to get a little discouraged by it. And then Vanderbilt thankfully hired Candace, who she was long prepared to be in that job, in that position, who I recruited out of high school when I was coaching. You know, so I've known Candace since she was a junior in high school. And then the same thing with Nina, very prepared to be in this role and got great pedigree. And so I'm so thankful that there are more and more presidents and chancellors and universities hiring people who look like me, and not holding that against us, but looking at our qualifications and looking at our experiences and saying this person is well qualified to do this job. And so I'm hoping that there will be many, many, many more to come.
What do you think the hang up is? Like, what do you think the reservation is for like a president to hire a Black AD? Like,
yeah,
because other people need to hear it. Like, you have to be prepared for it. Like, you certainly, it is a little bit different. Okay, good and bad. It's a little bit different in being a Black woman and being the athletic director over a Power 5 school. And it's not an easy thing because everybody, you know, most Power 5 schools are predominantly white universities. And it's, so what do you think the reservation is? Besides just the race? Because there is a difference in how we view things, and we have to be extra prepared for the position. So what do you think? What do you think the presidents are thinking?
I think that race and gender are definitely factors, and that's not unique to the sports industry. It's unique to every industry. So definitely factors. And I think that there's a fear or uncertainty about the unknown, right? If there aren't many of us who are athletic directors, then you can't look to examples to say, okay, well, this is how they handle that situation. This is how they handle this situation. And so there are plenty of Black women working in senior positions in athletic departments that are well qualified to be athletic directors. They need opportunities. They need for presidents and chancellors to actually look past the profile and look at the work that these women are doing, and to provide those same opportunities to work. So I think it's a fear of the unknown because there aren't many of us, and you can't look to it and figure out, how successful. Thankfully, Candace, Nina, and I are doing a really good job. We're doing great jobs at the schools we work with, and hopefully that'll help, eliminate some of the concern about whether or not we can do the job. From a gender standpoint, for sure, sports, there aren't many women leading sports programs, period, whether that's, coaches or athletic directors. And so that plays a role in it also. And that's why it's just been such a long time coming, and it's taken so long, and there's so few of us. We do the job every day in the department. We run athletic departments every day. But when it comes time to hire us to run the entire department publicly, that's where there's a hesitation.
Just switching gears a little bit, your thoughts on what happened at the NCAA women's basketball tournament with the weight room and the meal situation, compared to the men.
I wasn't surprised at all. I mean, okay. I've played. I went to college to play in 1985. And I've played in the NCAA tournament. I was a GA, during the NCAA tournament. I've coached in the NCAA tournament, been an administrator. I was not surprised. What was surprising was that it was still that way, right? So 2021, I can't remember what year that was, 2021, I believe it was. To see the stark differences was painful. But I have to say, I wasn't surprised. I don't think you were surprised. It's unfortunate that we are at this point and we're still not surprised by such inequities. But kudos to the student athlete that sent the video and posted the video to bring light to it. Because I think that's what needed to happen, and it's reverberated in there. And I know the NCAA convention is happening right now, and there was a big discussion on it on one of the first few days about the inequities with the women's championships overall, not just basketball, but with the women's championships. So hopefully the governing body for college athletics will take it to heart and make some real changes.
I'm seeing a big change in just the questions that we're being asked about the tournament, about the money that's going into it. I see the branding on social media, it's changing. So, I think it was a situation in which Sedona Prince's TikTok video came to light and brought about change, which is a good thing.
Yep, very good thing.
Changing gears a little bit, Miami's athletic director was on ESPN U Radio on Sirius XM at the end of last year saying that he believes the future of the NCAA's name, image, and likeness policy should be legislated by Congress. Do you agree?
Someone needs to, because we're not doing a good job. We're not doing a good job of it, unfortunately. So, these discussions are happening with state legislators and also, in Congress, and that may very well be where it ends up, is with Congress having to help us govern ourselves, because we aren't doing a good job of it right now.
How are you handling it on UVA's grounds?
Yeah, so I was been engaged in this conversation for the last couple of years on the NIL. So, everyone knew it was coming. So for us, we've tried to partner with the law school, the business school, College of Education to educate our student athletes. So we've got partnerships with the academic units on grounds to educate our student athletes. So they have a resource. And then we've also partnered with these, external companies, just like everyone else, to also educate the student athletes. Here in Virginia, we didn't have a state law. So we actually worked with the state legislature and the governor's office to have an executive order. And right now, or yesterday, our proposed bill just got forwarded to the full committee for review, and hopefully we'll vote it into effect here in Virginia so that student athletes can enter into NIL agreements and take full advantage of that. So, it's different in every state. We want the student athletes to be able to take advantage of these opportunities, and we want to be able to help them take advantage of these opportunities. So we spend, I'll bet you, Dawn, probably 20% of my day is spent on NIL right now.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Trying to get it right. Trying to make sure that Virginia is uniquely positioned in that space too.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's 20%. That's pretty big.
Yeah.
Pretty big. Yeah. So it's important. I mean, it is an important thing, and you want to put UVA in the best light to attracting the best athletes, because that's what it's about. It's a recruiting tool, and I know coaches are using that as they used it. I don't know how well it's going for student athletes, but they use it, and I wasn't one that used it. As far as, we couldn't do anything. It was so new that you really can't do anything, and things are changing every single day on the topic. But some of my players are benefiting from it, which is a good thing. And and it hasn't been a distraction for us overall, because we did some of the stuff up front. As their coach, I sat down with all of the student athletes on our team that wanted to sign with an agent. Mm-hmm. So if I said, if you want to sign with an agent, I'll reach out to some of the agents that I know to see if they have some interest in representing you. And we did a Zoom with them, their parents, the agents, and we did this all in the fall. So now several of them have agents, and they're just, it's probably 20% of their day as well, trying to figure out what to do, what not to do, and what fits in their schedule. So we're at a good place, but I know it's going to change, I'm sure, at some point, but it's somewhat under control.
Yeah, it'll keep evolving. And I love the way you handle it. And I think that's where we make mistakes in college athletics, is we don't do things up front. We kind of stick our head in the sand and then hope for the best. And that's not the right approach. So, meeting proactively with the student athletes is the right approach.
So I had a member of the University of South Carolina's Board of Trustees as a guest earlier this season, and he explained what the university trustees do. So I'm going to ask you, what are the main responsibilities of a university athletics director?
Oh, goodness. I was getting ready to tell you what the main responsibilities of the board is. You know what? I spend a lot of time managing people, and what's happening in college athletics right now, none of us prepared for. I mean, we this wasn't written down anywhere. The pandemic, NIL, whether or not student athletes become employees, the Alston case, there isn't a playbook for most of what we work on every day. And so what I've decided to do is make sure that we've got the right people on the bus, and then the right people in the right seats on the bus. And then you still have to make sure you have to motivate people, right? And you have to have people who are internally motivated, because this job is not getting any easier. It's getting more complicated, more complex. And if you want to thrive, right, and be successful, then you got to be forward thinking. You got to look around the corner. You got to anticipate, and you got to have the right people in place that are thinking like that every minute of the day. How do we get better? How do we help our teammates get better? How do we help our staff get better? How do we help our coaches get better? So I do a lot of that, a lot of fundraising. I was just on with a couple of donors before I hopped on with you, and talking about the vision, talking about the changing landscape, and securing investment in what we're trying to do at Virginia. So So fundraising, managing people. What I love the most is when I get to spend time with student athletes. I love that the most. I love going to watch them compete and, try and fail and try again and succeed. And that's the best part of my day is spending time with student athletes.
So I was going to ask you, what's your typical day? So you just told me that you just got off the phone, and it's in the morning, y'all. It's fairly early in the morning. You just got off the phone with some potential donors. You're on this podcast. Like, what's the rest of your day? What does that look like?
Yeah. So let me back up to yesterday because I think it'll be helpful. So I'm a mentor through the NCAA's Pathways program. So I had an aspiring Black female athletic director with me all day yesterday. So on Mondays, we have most of our staff meetings. So with our senior leadership team, and she got to sit in on that, with our sport administrators. So everybody that supervises the sport, we met yesterday. The NCAA convention is still happening. So I listened to a couple of those sessions yesterday as well. Talked with staff, internal and external, about NIL, and what's next and what do we do next to position UVA. Talk with donors again, in the afternoon. And then we have men's basketball game last night. And so, and then today from 8 to 9:20, I was on that donor call, and then I hopped on a call with you. And after we get off, I've got to prepare a couple of items. I promised those two donors. So I'll be preparing something to send to the donors here in a little bit. And I'm working on a new project that I hope will be unique to UVA and, will help us not only with fundraising, but with raising awareness and enhancing our athletic department in a big way. So I'm working on that project this afternoon also.
I'm excited to share more about Flame Bearers, one of my new favorite podcasts. On Flame Bearers, top women Olympic and Paralympic athletes from around the world, like USA Soccer's Becky Sauerbrunn and Nigerian hoop star Azane Kalu Phelps, share their rarely heard stories and their full selves. Hear directly from the masters of grit and resilience to learn more about the issues that matter most to them and how they've been able to overcome obstacle after obstacle. Season 2 is live now, and Flame Bearers is spotlighting the women athletes blazing the trail to Beijing, including U.S. figure skater Brady Tennell, ROC's Oksana Abdulkarimova, and many more. When you watch them compete in February and March, you'll see what they've worked so hard to achieve. But first, hear from them what happens when the cameras are off and stadiums are silent. During these challenging times, these women are an endless source of hope and inspiration. Get ready for February's Beijing Games and listen to Flame Bearers wherever you get your podcast. What's the best workout program? The one that is custom built just for you. Future is the new workout experience that pairs you one-on-one with your own fitness coach. You'll get unlimited personal training and all the support you need to stay on track. Your coach will map out a plan based on your goals, build the workouts to get you there, and keep you accountable every day. Future, your Apple Watch, and the app all pair seamlessly to allow you to track metrics like calories burned and heart rate. Together, you and your coach can track your progress, celebrate achievements, and tune your routine to perfection. Future has over 3,000 five-star reviews. It may be the most expensive fitness app in the store, but it's the lowest you'll pay for unlimited personal training. Workouts built just for you and the individual coaching to push your performance to the next level. That's the future of fitness. Get started right now with 50% off your first 3 months at tryfuture.com/netlife. That's tryfuture.com/netlife. future.com/NETLIFE. Future provides unlimited digital training and custom workouts all through the Future app. Get your first 3 months for 50% off. Have you ever heard of recovery footwear or active recovery? I had neither until a fellow coach gifted me a pair of UFOs. And let me tell you, they have become my habit. I keep a pair everywhere, at home, in my office, in my locker, everywhere. As a former athlete, I still work out. It's tough to turn that off. But I also have to get my boy Champ his exercise. And of course, coaching is super active. So I'm constantly on the move. My UFOs help me feel so much better throughout the day, no matter how much I have going on. UFOs uses a unique foam material called UFOam TM that absorbs impact so your body doesn't have to. You know, the journey that leads you to success is filled with adversity that can knock you off your path. But the resilience to sustain that success starts with active recovery and UFOs. Check out all the different styles, each with the same foam technology and footbed on UFOs.com. They changed my life, and I think they could do the same for you. So who's the next, like young, you said you're mentoring, you just had someone on the grounds yesterday. Who's the next or the next few young Black aspiring ADs that are ready? Like you think they're ready to take that next step, because it is changing. Like your landscape is changing, and you have to be prepared to pivot, and you got to get in front of stuff. You got to handle stuff, in the present. Like it's not for the faint at heart. It is for someone that is going to get in that seat, and it's not 12 inches over like as a coach. It's a whole office over, and it's a lot different.
Yeah. There are several. I mean, and I don't mind, and you are familiar with some of them because a couple are in your league. I think that Linda Teeler at Florida is phenomenal. I just think she's phenomenal. I've worked with her for many, many years. So she's been ready, and I know she's selective. I've been, Tiffany Daniels is someone that I've been pushing for years. Very, very talented associate commissioner in the SEC, and both of them former student athletes that have done extremely well in their positions and are ready. Kristen Brown at Texas A&M is ready. I mean, Dawn, there are so many, because when you do the job every day in the department, then the work it's a habit. So what you have to get used to is the external part, working with donors, working with the media, speaking engagements. That's the part that you have to become familiar with. The actual work, we're all doing it every day.
Right. How does one get experience working with donors? Like, because I know that being here in South Carolina, they're really possessive of donors. Like they don't, there's certain people that we can't talk to, there's, let me handle that account. So how does someone that wants to be in that position, because that's the hard part, that's building a relationship. That's the part that's the unknown. As far as building relationships with donors, because they don't know you and they're used to a certain way. They're used to, the previous AD, and this is how we've done things. And how do they get that experience on campus in their current positions?
Yeah, it's easier than you think. Okay, so when I was at Georgia and I worked in administration, I wasn't, until I moved up and advanced, there was a time when I wasn't responsible for fundraising, right? And so it's the same thing I tell student athletes who want to go into athletic administration. Show up at events, go to events. We are always having donor events, whether it's a Zoom call during the pandemic or pre-pandemic events, post-pandemic events. Show up, go, meet people, introduce yourself, and then you meet people, and then the second event that you go to, some of the same people are there, and you're building a relationship with those people. I especially say that to student athletes. So those in administration who were former student athletes, donors love the student athletes. They want to hear from the student athletes. They want to hear their stories. No one can tell the story of a student athlete like the student athlete. So there's a built-in advantage there. So if you were a former student athlete, they want to hear about your story. So when you go to those events, you do have something to talk about. There, you can relate. So going to those events, I think, is really important for me. One of the things that I've tried to do here is to mix our fundraisers and our administrative staff. So we have meetings together. So whereas oftentimes it's separate. So our SWA is in regular meetings with our fundraisers. My CFO is in regular meetings with our fundraisers. Our deputy AD is in regular meetings with our fundraisers. So I had to be intentional about that, though. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. So you can control it by volunteering and attending events. And then, I've said this to a lot of people as well, you got to make sure people know what you want. So many, many, many years ago, I went to our athletic director at Georgia and I said, I want to be an athletic director. Help me. What do I need to do to become an athletic director? And so once I developed the list, which included fundraising, okay, how do we do that? Okay, well, you take this meeting, you attend this meeting, you go to this event, so letting people know that that's what you want to do. You got to speak it into existence. I really believe that.
So you went to your athletic director. Now, sometimes when you tell people what you want, there's roadblocks.
Yeah.
They're looking at, they could look at you like she's trying to take my job. So how do you navigate through that?
So you have to know if there's a receptive heart, right? Because if there isn't, then yes, they're going to be intimidated. Mm-hmm. So because my athletic director, Grant McGarity at Georgia, had a receptive heart to help me learn, I recognized that and I could go to him. But you are exactly right. Not everyone should know what your goals and dreams are, because they'll start figuring out how to block that from happening. So you've got to communicate with, network, reach out to people who or sense will have a receptive heart to helping you grow and develop, because they're out there.
As you've heard in earlier episodes, we've been sharing about a podcast we love called Flame Bearers. This week, I have a clip that I want to share with my listeners because Brady is such a boss and exactly what our world needs more of. Brady Tennell is a record-breaking U.S. Olympic bronze medalist and two-time national champion figure skater. She made a tough decision to withdraw from figure skating nationals due to a chronic foot injury. Though Brady's path to the Beijing Olympics ended early, her journey is well worth celebrating. Hear Brady share one of her finest moments.
My free skate that year at nationals, I was in first after the short, which was absolutely crazy to me. I was like, oh my God, this is insane. It's Olympic year. I'm in a really good spot. I just need to go out there and don't mess up, which every athlete knows. You never tell yourself don't mess up because, So yeah, I remember stepping on the ice and the crowd was so loud and so intense that I literally could not hear the announcer saying my name. I was just like, well, the clock started, so I guess he said it. I better go. I was like, this is crazy. And I remember I have to just put it all on the line. Like, what do I have to lose? I never thought I'd be in this position this year. And I remember finishing that program and looking up at the ceiling and being like, I can't believe I just did that. It was like an out-of-body experience. I started crying right away. I was like, oh my God. And all I wanted to do was hug my mom after the scores were announced. And I realized that I won and I was able to give her a hug right after I won.
Good.
And I think that's probably my most cherished moment of my career was being able to hug her.
There's nothing like that feeling after winning the championship and being able to share that moment with people you care about most, who are with you every step of the way as you worked and fought to get to that point in your career. While we'll miss seeing Brady on the ice during the Winter Olympics going on now in Beijing, she will be cheering for Team USA along with the rest of us. Listen to Brady's full episode on Flame Bearers to learn more about how she's prioritizing herself and her love of the sport over risking lifelong injury. Most of your tenure has been through a pandemic, like uncharted waters. How are you navigating through the pandemic? How are you navigating through like ongoing social justice issues? And how do you deal with that? Because it's a lot. It's not just a pandemic, it's social justice, is NIL, all this new stuff that's going on. How are you juggling all of that?
Yeah, I try to compartmentalize a lot because it could be overwhelming if you just try to fix everything at once or address everything at once. And so, when I'm working on NIL, I'm working on social justice, or I'm working on NIL when I'm working on social justice. So you think about that. So our student athletes, so I was just walking through the women's basketball locker room last night before the men's game. And one of our players was in there on her laptop and she was getting ready to get onto a Zoom call meeting with, we have a Black student athlete organization here at UVA. So it's called BOSS. So she was just getting ready to get, on that meeting. Now she had just traveled back from a game. She had practiced classwork and boom, right? So she's, staying engaged. And so because I know her, because I talked to her, she felt comfortable in telling me what she was doing, and so this too, Dawn, you have to be present in the moment. Like when I'm talking to a student athlete, I can't be thinking about what happened with an expense or some revenue or something. I'm talking to the student athlete because they are the reason why we're here. Without them, there's no need for athletic directors. And so I try to compartmentalize. I try to stay present in dealing with whatever it is I'm working with at the time. And, I try to stay informed. I try to make sure I don't get out of touch in any way. And the pandemic has made it harder, but not impossible, to stay in touch with the community, the local community here in Charlottesville, with my family, with our student athletes. So, you have to, the way I manage it is to compartmentalize it and be present with whatever I'm working on at the time.
So if we weren't in a pandemic, which is kind of hard to imagine if we weren't, because we've been in it so long, do you think your job would have been a little easier?
Yes. Yes, I think, absolutely. Because, all of us have lost revenue that, we would have reinvested, back in our programs. And that's impacted facility, maintenance and changes. And from a health and safety standpoint, I think the pandemic has affected all students. During the pandemic, I had two children that were in college too. They weren't student athletes, but they were in college during the pandemic too. So I know it affects regular students. Were our student athletes able to thrive as much as they could have without the challenges of the pandemic and, missing games and missing practices? I often wonder about that. Did we do as well as we could have given the restrictions? But we also had, in the last 2 years, we've won national championships. So we'll have to look back at over the years and be able to tell how did we actually do throughout this pandemic. yeah, it's definitely been a challenge. It's been harder. It's made the job harder for all of us. I think it's made it harder for our student athletes, for our coaches. But we've adjusted, right? We've all adjusted.
I'm getting to like, some of your personal life, and you mentioned that in juggling that work-life balance. How do you do that? Like, how do you maintain, being a mom and being a wife? Well, you said your daughters, they came to Charlottesville before they went to college. So how was their transition from Georgia to Charlottesville?
Yeah. So we've got 3 kids and they're spread out. So there's 4 to 5 years between each one. And so when I took the job here and moved to Charlottesville in December of 17, my son was in the middle of 8th grade. So he moved here in the middle of 8th grade. Our middle daughter was a freshman at Georgia, and our oldest daughter was a senior at Georgia. So they were in college when I took the job. Our son was the only one that was still living with us because he's in middle school. So since I've been here, my son's been in high school. He's a senior now. Joshua, shout out to Joshua. And then our oldest daughter actually graduated from Georgia and came to UVA to go to law school. So she was here for 3 years during the pandemic in law school. And our middle daughter was at Georgia during the pandemic. And so she's in graduate school now at Arizona State. So, and my husband is a professor here at UVA. So, the transition for him was fairly easy because he's teaching the same courses he's always taught.
Wait, let me tell you, what's Joshua what is he gonna do? Because he's got some heavy hitters as siblings and parents. What's he gonna do?
You know what? He is the most low maintenance, no drama kid in the world. Very little bothers him. So he's not worried about it at all. He'll go to college somewhere and he'll do the best he can.
Sorry to interrupt you. You were transitioning.
No. But he's a sweet kid, and everyone knows he's spoiled. But yeah, so he'll be going off to college, this summer. And we try, what we try not to do, and I did the same thing when I was coaching is, there's no pressure like your own internal pressure, no motivation like your own internal motivation. So I try to make sure that they understand the importance of doing their best, and then they figure out how to get there, and they got to figure out how to get there, and I'll help and support them along the way. But the transition has gone well. We've moved. We've worked at Georgia twice, FSU, Vanderbilt, now Virginia. So our family is accustomed to moving around a little bit.
What does success look like to you?
Yeah. Personally, when I can look in the mirror and feel good about the job I've done, and when I can lay my head down at night and rest easy because my integrity is intact. As a, for my family is, for my children to be healthy and happy and thriving. And we have varying degrees of that, at different times. But, I want to see my kids be able to thrive and do not be hampered by society or anyone else, but be able to do what they want to do and be able to do it well. Professionally, my hope is that people will always look at UVA and think, wow, they do a great job. That's a well-run athletic department, broad-based, successful program that gives all of its teams an opportunity to be successful.
Right. That's pretty good. Carla, have you in your career, what was the most challenging thing? Have you come across people who have challenged your ability to keep your integrity intact?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And how do you handle that? Like, how do you handle it?
I'll give you an example. And this cuts at the core of who I am and why being in this position means so much to so many people and why there are sacrifices. I used to tell this story, and I left out the other person that was with me until that person became an athletic director, because I didn't want to do anything to hurt their chances to become an athletic director. But once they became an athletic director, we both agreed that we could, use each other's names in this story. So several years ago, when I was a deputy AD, I would go with our athletic director to AD meetings to learn, because you want to be in the room. You need to be able to listen at how decisions are made. Candace at Vanderbilt was, her athletic director did the same with her. So David Williams, allowed Candace to go to AD meetings with him as well. So we were at an AD meeting, and we got there. Everyone arrived the night before, because the meetings were going to start bright and early in the morning. And Candace and I just so happened got down to the meeting space early. And the meeting space is breakfast set up out in the lobby area, and you could fix your plate and go inside to the meeting room to eat. So we both got there early, and we had on our business suits and our leather messenger bags and our lanyards, with our credentials, ready to go and learn. And we got there, and we were the first ones there. And there was one athletic director that was already there. He had gotten there right before us. And she and I walked in, and he looked at us, both of us, and he said, "What did y'all fix for breakfast for us?" And, Candace was, Candace is younger than me, so I'm a little bit more seasoned, I think was ready to pounce. But, I just, we just kind of looked at him and shook our heads, because, and that happens often, Dawn. When that happens, the intent is to break your spirit. That's the intent. That's the motivation. That's the purpose. That's the intent. What we have to do is expect it and not allow it to happen. We got to reject it, and it's motivation, right? It adds fuel to the fire. Not only are we going to be athletic directors, right? We're going to stop that from happening. That has to cease, right? So there's an additional motivation to be a change agent, not just be an AD, but be a change agent. So yes, have I experienced times that challenged my calmness? I won't let anything alter my integrity, but challenges to me remaining professional and a calm demeanor. Absolutely.
Does everyone know that you're the athletics director at UVA? Like, I'm going to give you an example. Like, when we fly in and we have a bus company from the place that we're flying into. Sometimes when I get on the bus, I look kind of young. That's a good thing. But if I sit in the first seat on the bus and Lisa Boyer sits in the first seat on the other side on the bus, the bus driver always acknowledges her. And I sit there, like, I just sit there and I just let them talk. And then our director of basketball operations is, she's a young Black young lady, and she sometimes has to tell the bus driver that I'm the head coach. But I don't, I just, it's assumptions. It's like, It's assumptions. And I don't really, I'm not offended or anything. I like to see their reaction when they find out that I'm the head coach. It's priceless. So yes, we all go through that. I mean, it's in that profession, it's in the, it's if you're in a, retail store, that happens. Like, so I wear all black all the time. And it's like, no, I'm not the Mac retail person. I'm not that person, but it happens. It happens. Yeah. And I'm probably more like Candace in that situation than you. And I really haven't learned that. I haven't learned in a bus situation. It's happened so often that I'm just like, okay, this is what it is. Yeah. But in other situations, I don't think I handle them well because the lesson isn't mine. It's actually for the next person. So I will say something to correct them. Yeah. So we've all been through that. I got just a couple of more questions. Like, did you had to fire a football coach and hire another coach? Is that?
He resigned.
Okay, he resigned. Okay.
Yep. I just hired a new coach.
Right.
3 weeks ago.
Yep. Clemson assistant. Thank you for getting him out the state. So increase our chances of winning, hopefully. What goes into that? Like, what do you look like for the football position? Mm-hmm. What type of coach were you looking for? Like, when does the search start? Mm-hmm. When, are you already thinking like Ray Tanner? Mm-hmm. I got a pretty long deal, but shouldn't he start looking for the next one? Like who's the next coach and what's your thought process in finding a new coach? Did you have a mental Rolodex of coaches that you had your eye on?
I think most athletic directors do that for most of their coaching positions, because you never know when a coach is going to walk in and say, I'm done. Right? You don't necessarily have to fire somebody. They could just walk in and say, I'm leaving, or I'm going to do something else. So you need to be prepared, at least, with a list and the type of coach that you're looking for. So for football, unexpected. Bronco's resignation was unexpected, and I think he's a wonderful, wonderful person and did a great deal to help UVA. And he's laid a strong foundation for Coach Elliott. And so, what you look for is coaches who you think can help the program be successful. So that's winning, that's recruiting, that's managing young people. Right. And then you got the other parts of it, which is the CEO part of the sport, being able to work with the administration, work with the university administration, with donors, external media, all of that stuff. So it's the same, in my opinion, the same set of categories, factors are the same kind of regardless of the sport. And then you start thinking about fit, who would be a great fit at UVA, which is a unique place, a special place. And I think UVA attracts a unique set of people, whether it's student athletes, coaches, or administrators. And so you want to make sure you add to that. We've got some great coaches here, and you want to make sure you add to that, because they do feed off of each other and they do talk to each other. And So yeah, I've been through football's, transition before, and, had that experience at Georgia. And I've been through, I've been here 4 years, and I've hired 5 head coaches, so I've been through it before. Different sports, you kind of look for the same things, who can be successful.
How do you handle this? I'm gonna ask you some campus type stuff, not campus, our campus, like the stuff I have to go through. When I say this, I think, and I'm just kind of asking this because I know other coaches have to deal with this on their campuses. It's for men's and women's basketball, what our men's team may like, we may not like as women's basketball. How do you make it equitable?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I do believe just psychologically, men's basketball pretty much probably thinks they should get what they want when they want it. And football is a different beast.
Yeah.
But men's basketball, I think they should get what they want. And I'm just gonna lay it out there too. Like there are, like, I feel like I've had to fight for our assistant coaches in equal pay. Mm-hmm. Just equal pay. Like, I didn't fight for equal pay until just a while ago, just a few months ago. But for our coaches, I felt like we had sustained success. And that really wasn't the case on the men's side, but they seem to always make more than our assistant coaches. So I fought. Hey, and I didn't even fight for me, because I was comfortable. So how do you have those conversations with, coaches when it's time for not even, just making it equitable? Because that's the thing. How do you seem like a really nice person. Like I do. I feel your energy is really great energy. I know you have to make some tough calls and have uncomfortable conversations. How do you do that and make like a coach like me feel good about our assistant coaches not making as much as the men's coach?
So first of all, I do know Ray from my time in the SEC, phenomenal baseball coach. Most of the time when I was in the SEC, he was the baseball coach and became AD when I was just getting ready to come here, I believe. First of all, performance matters, right? Performance matters. And I don't think you or me would expect anything if we weren't performing, right? So, but if we're performing, then we should be compensated appropriately, right? So I think that cannot be understated. So the performance, what you have done at South Carolina is unprecedented. Yeah, I played at Georgia and we traveled to South Carolina to play. There was nobody in the gym. I coached at Georgia and we played at South Carolina. There was nobody in the gym. Nobody. We went to South Carolina a few years ago for our first and second round of the women's basketball tournament. I parked in the parking lot, where the reserved parking, and I always speak to everybody, parking attendants, custodians, grounds crew. My dad was a janitor. I know better, right? And we pulled in the parking lot, speaking to everybody. And you know what they wanted to talk about? Dawn Staley, the parking attendants, So the performance speaks for itself. And I think that sometimes what we may do is we may get ahead of the performance in our expectations, right? So for me as an athletic director, I got to make sure that our coaches have what they need to be successful. And then when the coaches have what they need to be successful, then it's up to the coach to take that and make it special, right? And when you make it special, equity is a lot easier. It's a lot easier. In the meantime, you got to follow the law. So the law says, you can't raise money to improve the men's facility without doing the same for the women's facility. So that's my responsibility, right? So that's a big part of it too, is when you think about equity, it's not just the compensation, it's also staffing, it's facilities, it's travel, it's for recruiting, it's all of those things. And what I found on in my time as an athletic director is, as the AD, if it's not important to me, then everybody else got other stuff to do. If I don't make it important as the athletic director, then no one else will. And I have to do that constantly. That is a constant thing. That is a constant message, because people just don't naturally think that way. So I think communication is really important. I think that a lot of times as athletic directors, people don't know what's expected. You know, what's expected. And, you know, we may look at it and go, well, it's clear you need to win. You need to graduate. You know, you need to be a good citizen of the world. You know, but then you got to take those things and say, okay, well, am I doing my part to help make that happen? You know, and then when you come and say, hey, my pay and the pay of my staff should be more equitable, then you know what, you're right.
So take in consideration, like, we're considered a non-revenue producing sport. So how do you know, because that's the thing that comes up time and time again.
See, it doesn't matter. And you aren't a non-revenue, you are a revenue producing sport, right? But it doesn't matter, because the law says it doesn't matter. You know, that's what the law says. And you guys sell out, you sell tickets, right? Your fans travel, right? So that's revenue producing. I didn't say you operate in the black.
Right.
I said it's revenue producing. It produces revenue, right? So I wouldn't even categorize you guys as that. And the value, here's what we all need to just understand and move past it, and I think we struggle with it, is the same value that my son gains from playing sports, my daughters gain from playing sports. My daughters deserve the same quality of coaches as my son. My daughters deserve the same quality of facility as my son. Yeah, and so on and so on and so on. It doesn't matter that the market is saying something else.
How simple that is. It's very simple. If we could just keep it simple, it you know, all your answers are, you know, within that simple space. And I appreciate you for making that very, very clear. So we're going to finish up right here. So before I let you go, we're going to do a little something that's fun. It's called the NETLIFE shot clock. So all right. I want to ask you some questions, and hopefully you can answer them in under 20 seconds. If you can't, so be it.
Okay. All right.
What's your favorite Charlottesville restaurant?
Burton's.
Burton's. I've never been to Burton's. Is the Aberdeen Barn still there?
Yeah, Aberdeen Barn is still here.
All right. Yep. All right. What was your favorite cartoon as a child?
Probably the Road Runner.
Road Runner. If the NIL were a thing when you were at Georgia, what deal would you have wanted?
Nike.
Okay. What is your first memory of watching women's sports?
Watching women's sports. Okay, I'm gonna do this in under 20 seconds. I was 15 years old. Louisiana Tech was ranked #1 in the country. Georgia was ranked in the top 5, top 10 maybe, but up and coming. They played in Cobb County in Georgia. Kim Mulkey, I remember, with her long braided ponytail and those sleeve shirts, played against Georgia. And my high school coach took us to that game. So I'm a freshman, and I'm sitting there watching these two teams with these women from universities. And that's when I first realized that you could go to college to play basketball. I'm just playing basketball. You can go to college and play basketball. So that was my first memory of watching women's basketball.
Pretty cool one. That's pretty cool one. Okay. If you could make a rule that everyone had to follow, what would it be?
The golden rule: treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah. When you treat people good, they treat you better.
Very few people do that.
Very few. Very few. Like when you just said, talking to the janitors, we talk to everybody. We got a relationship with everybody, like a good one too, because we take the time to talk to them, all those yellow coats that are around our game. I talk to them all the time because those are the people, those are the first faces that you see when you come into one of our games, and they feel good about what they're doing. They're going to make everybody that walks past them feel special. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. What city do you think the WNBA should add an expansion team? Charlottesville?
You know what? I'll go with, well, yeah, if it was possible, I'd say Charlottesville. I'm trying to think of where it would thrive, and I'm thinking Milwaukee, because the Bucks have done such a great job and shown that it can thrive. And they're huge fans of basketball in that part of the country too. I also like when, I thought it was great when there was a WNBA team in Charlotte. I know one in Atlanta, but an additional team in the Southeast would be great.
Let's go, Mike. MJ. And then my last question is favorite thing about UVA.
Favorite thing about UVA. There are a lot, okay, but I'm going to give you a philosophical one. Okay. The fact that Jim Ryan and UVA had the courage to give me a chance.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. That's awesome. In this podcast, I'm talking leadership, disruptors, change makers. It's hoops, it's politics, it's pop culture. It's the net sum of life. So before I let you go, I ask all my guests for some words of wisdom that either they receive, that helps guide them, or that they want to pass along to others. Carla, what's your words of wisdom to share?
I'll think about my children and what I try to share with them, which is you've been blessed and highly favored. Return that back.
That's awesome. Well, thanks. I enjoyed this conversation deeply. But before I let you go, do you have anything that you want to plug or promote? i.e. donors?
I want all UVA donors, all UVA alums, all UVA supporters to give to our capital campaign to help us build our facilities. It's going to transform UVA athletics for the next 40 years. We need your help.
And I told you I'm going to help you. So yep. I'm still waiting on you.
I know. I'm waiting for a purpose. Hang in there.
Thank you, Carla, so much. And best of luck to you. I wish you nothing but the best. And I know UVA is a better place because you are at the helm. So I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. And good luck to you. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. And thank you all so much for listening. Don't forget to follow NETLIFE with Dawn Staley on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. NETLIFE is produced by Just Women Sports. For more great sports content, go to justwomensports.com. Be sure to subscribe to the newsletter and YouTube channel and follow along on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And this is Dawn Staley signing off, and look forward to having some great conversations. Before you see their scores, hear their stories. On the Flame Bearers podcast, top women identifying athletes from around the world share their trials, triumphs, and full selves. With the Beijing Olympics and Paralympics right around the corner, Flame Bearers' second season is live now and highlighting stories from U.S. figure skater Brady Tennell, ROC's Oksana Abdulkarmimova, and many more. Get ready for the Beijing Games and listen to Flame Bearers wherever you get your podcasts.